Hello and welcome to Real Parenting for the Sensitive Mom, the podcast for moms who feel everything and still show up. I'm Adrienne Bishop, your co-host and parenting coach.
And I'm Leah Andrioni, your co-host and family therapist.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about something we all have a complicated relationship with, clutter.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just toys. It's how the mess actually makes me feel. I always get so stressed out and my energy is low. And it even affects how I deal with the kids because then I'm irritated with them because they haven't cleaned it.
Especially in families where someone is really sensitive to their environment, that can cause so much stress. And so we're so excited to be joined by Ann Dooley, a professional home organizer and the founder of Simple Joy with Ann.
Ann is a certified master level KonMari consultant, a parenting coach, author, and the creator of the Dooley Method, a connection-first approach to organizing with families.
She helps parents and kids create calm, orderly homes by blending intentional organizing with communication, collaboration, and emotional awareness. Her gentle, non-judgmental approach teaches organizing skills through relationship, so responsibility grows naturally without power struggles.
Her approach itself is so unique. It fits in line with all the things that we have been talking about in regards to taking off some of the emotional and mental load from moms and helping families to support each other and work together. So that's one of the reasons why I decided it would be great to have her on. We're so happy to have you here, Ann.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. So to kick off the conversation, as we talk about sensitive moms, sensitive parents, and we've all seen the mess and it really affects us that you don't want to do it all yourself. But then when you try to get the kids to help, they resist.
I know that when I work with parents, they say things like, clean your room or you get no screens. Or if you pick up your toys, I'll get you what you want. We'll get you that toy. You pick up your stuff. So why do you think that these tactics may not be effective, especially for sensitive kids?
So it's so common for parents to use external motivations like threatening that you don't get any screen time, or if you don't pick up your stuff, you don't get dessert after dinner or something like that. But what parents may not realize that by offering that external motivation, we're actually activating our children's automatic stress response, because they have a new tough decision they have to make. So especially with highly sensitive children, they pick up on everything from the energy that you carry in your body the moment you walk into their room to your tone of voice or their nervous system, which is still developing. And they'll read any sort of discomfort in their body as a perceived danger. So when you're asking them to stop playing or whatever it is that they're doing that's fun for them and take care of something else that they don't really want to do, or else you'll get mad, then it feels like they're getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. Their body goes into survival mode. That's their fight, flight, and freeze response. And so what it might look like when you ask them to clean up is they go into fight mode, which is like, no, they get very angry and defensive. Or flight mode, maybe they'll slam the door or they'll just go cover themselves under the blanket. Or avoidance, like they freeze up and maybe it seems like they can't hear you. So oftentimes their refusal is actually due to feeling overwhelmed by how much there is to do, like the same way we feel, or they don't know how much time it's going to take. Like in their mind, they just think, this is going to take forever. Or maybe they are insecure about what to do. Like, I don't know where to put all this stuff. My mom just said, go clean up. Like, what does that mean? And sometimes children need more time to transition from one activity to the next. And so for us, because we're already triggered by the mess, we are rushing to get it done. So it's hard for them to just stop playing. And so the problem is that once their survival mode kicks in, they can't access that part of their brain that helps them think clearly or follow instructions. So then using a threat or a bribe, the parent and the child, they both end up arguing or negotiating over that external motivation. Like, no, I want more time, or something else they're trying to get out of it. And you're getting further and further away from that actual task you're asking them to do, because you've created another layer of decision making for the child, and it's a lot of times based in fear.
So you were saying that asking your kids to do something makes them resist in a certain way. If you're threatening them or you're using bribes, it makes them want to resist against it and not want to do it. So that makes a lot of parents get frustrated. Like they don't know what to do when their kid says no or they ignore them. How do you help parents to just remember or think about it in the way of they're not doing it on purpose, right? How do you talk to the parents that you work with about how they're not doing it on purpose to be manipulative?
It's really important for parents to remember that we've had decades more experience than our children in cleaning up. And a task that might feel easy for us, like just put that away, just put it in the box. It requires like the motor skills and executive functioning that the kids just simply don't even have. And so when parents are in that situation, try to catch themselves being in that mindset where you get stuck thinking like, oh, they're acting this way because they don't respect me. Or, they don't care about the home. Don't they know how hard I work to provide for them? We get into that spiral where sometimes we think, oh my God, my children are being so lazy or so manipulative, like they're giving us a hard time. But those are just thoughts. There are survival instincts talking. They're not facts. And so what might actually be going on and why our children aren't cooperating is something could be as simple as they're just tired or hungry if their basic needs aren't met because they've just been playing for a long time, right? A lot of times when they make a mess, they've been immersed in play. Or maybe they have been activated by your stress energy and that right now they're just feeling scared that, oh, maybe I'm in trouble. So their survival instinct is taking over. Or they just don't know how because when they're being told to clean up and maybe you have not showed them like the small steps, right? In order for them to clean up a room, it may involve them putting the books on the shelves, put the Legos in the box, put stuffed animals into a basket, put your clothes in a hamper. And it's very overwhelming. That's a multiple step process. The same way that we feel overwhelmed when we see clutter, children experience that too. So instead of assuming that they have bad intention behind their pushback, if parents can kind of pause and like check in with ourselves that, okay, I'm feeling a little activated now, but let me calm myself. And then I'm able to get curious, like what else might be going on? And you might realize, oh yeah, they like haven't eaten anything for the last 3 hours. Or we can approach them with a little bit softer, gentler energy so that the children, when you speak to them, you're asking them, hey, I noticed you didn't pick up your toys. Is it because you don't know where they go? Or does it feel like this is too much? And so when you approach them like that, instead of like, hey, you didn't do, what I asked you to do, you're now just approaching them as if you're on the same team, that this is not a power struggle. You're just trying to understand. And that opens up the door for cooperation.
I feel like you mentioned curiosity a lot. And I think that is one of your tools when it comes to getting the clients you work with to work with their kids better, is to have that thought of, I wonder what's going on. I wonder what's bothering them. I wonder what they need. And that's something that I use a lot in my coaching too, as opposed to immediately going to, they're doing this on purpose or they don't care. Watch your brain do that. And then if you think to yourself, okay, there is a useful reason for this. They're not just behaving this way because they are choosing to. Usually there's a need or there's a reason behind it or emotional reason. And so if you can just remember that all behavior is communication is one of the things I like to say. I think the curiosity can become natural, a little more natural, and it works the same way in the situation with cleaning and clutter and all this. So I love that you have that in your philosophy. I think that's a really great way to approach it.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing a lot is nervous system regulation, which when I'm talking with moms, we're working on our nervous system first. Because I've never heard of a kid's resistance to clutter framed that way, with understanding that you've just activated their nervous system, probably into fight or flight by asking them to clean up or threatening or bribing. So to me, that's really interesting. And I'm wondering, because you say, really kind of take that pause and get curious. And are there things that you help the parents understand about their own nervous system, and any tips that you provide them that maybe the parents can use and then they can teach the kids to use also with that nervous system regulation piece.
So, yes, I've been there myself where I feel really overwhelmed and makes me want to cry or pull my hair out. And so, in that moment, if parents can just acknowledge those feelings, and you can even say it to yourself, like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, because when you name it and you notice it, you can also hold space for yourself to let that feeling be felt. And it's a very interesting thing that I learned in therapy, that our tears are actually our body's way of like releasing the excess stress hormone that's in our body. Like, I grew up with my father always said, stop crying. I would just suppress everything. But once I learned this, that our tears are actually our body's natural way of trying to help us feel regulated again, that it's not a sign of weakness. It actually happens when we feel overwhelmed. It's like the same way we feel when we're overjoyed. So
This is Leah's thing. She loves
Yes.
encouraging people to cry. That's her big thing.
yes, yeah, it's great. It's such a great release. And it's like when you realize it's good for your body, then there's no shame around it. And it's just, I think we were saying before, it's like it's your body's way of communicating with you. So now whenever I feel like I need to cry, the first thing is I even tell my kids, I could be crying because I'm sad, happy, stressed, like I'm just really overwhelmed, right? So if a parent can remember that, a lot of times I use this example, like the movie, the Pixar movie Inside Out. Like, if I just imagine inside my head, there are these characters and they're just sounding the alarm, and it's like, oh no, no, pay attention, something bad is happening. And it feels like life or death. And imagine yourself going up to that character and just be like, hey, thank you for letting me know. Like, I get it. This feels urgent, but it's going to be okay. Like, I can take it from here. So I'm trying to shift to access a different part of my brain now where I can actually think logically. So, taking a few more breaths, open up a window, or like moving my body, just kind of get myself out of that fight or flight state. Then sometimes I even feel like I can relate to how my child is feeling. If I'm feeling this way, and, I'm so much older with so much more life experience, like, imagine they're 5, 10 years old, that they don't have as many tools as I do or understand the feelings. So I can have also a little bit more empathy for my child, like, ooh, when they're flooded with stress hormone and they're having a meltdown, like, it kind of brings us into the same place. Like, we're both having a hard time, but together we can figure this out together as a team.
I love that. I think that's really important to understand that as a parent, you can work on those things on your own and kind of work through what's happening emotionally with you and acknowledging it. And that's the same thing we do with our kids, right? We help them acknowledge their emotions. We help validate their emotions. And you can do the same thing with yourself. And even in that moment, you can do it. You can take a 5-second pause because nothing is urgent. You're just looking at mess, or you've just asked your kid to do something and they're resisting. So you can take a second and be like, okay, I think I'm just overwhelmed, and that's normal. That's okay. I'm safe. Nothing bad's happening, right? And just remind yourself and your nervous system that it's okay, and it's okay to feel this way, and to just take that pause. And I really do think that that's a really good idea. And I love the image of the Inside Out, just talking to the character, being the adult in the situation, handling the emotion for them, and just, taking responsibility for some of that is super, super important. So I like how you put that out there, but make the picture.
Yeah. And what I really like was, even Adrienne, what you were saying, talking to yourself. If you say that out loud in front of your child, you are role modeling what you hope that they, start to use as their internal talk. So that role modeling is a great way for both of you to relax. And kind of come back to be centered. And then, and as you were saying, more of a teamwork. Because I feel like a lot of parents are like, well, they need to listen to me. They need to do it. I don't want to do it, so they have to. But having that team approach I feel is different than what you hear a lot of other times.
Yeah. And I think that's Ann's kind of thing in these scenarios, is working together as a team. And how do you do that? So we're definitely going to talk about that for sure in a little bit. So when we talked earlier, you had mentioned that sometimes the way we manage clutter comes from how we grow up. And this is something you think is important to talk to your parents about that you work with. And so some of us had parents that save everything, every card, every drawing, every ticket stub, nothing got thrown away. They keep it all. It's all emotionally connected to them. And then there's other people that your parents will just walk in and grab everything that they see and toss it out and not even mention it to you. And all of a sudden your stuff is gone. So these two extremes can be really difficult to manage if this is what you've seen. You've only seen these two big extremes, or maybe you've sort of unconsciously been trained to do those things and you're not aware of it. So how does that affect how we work with our kids now or deal with clutter in the moment in our adult life? And how can you stop from repeating those situations?
Yes, this is a really important piece of the puzzle because the amount of clutter in the home that you grew up in kind of sets up your baseline for how much you can tolerate, right? So, and then also how your parents dealt with the clutter also impacts how you address it with your kids. So let's say you grew up in a home that has a lot of clutter and your parents kept everything. And you might feel paralyzed when it's time to let things go because your parents didn't do that. And then you might feel guilty if you want to throw things out, but you weren't allowed to. Even as grown-ups, we still kind of look for approval from our parents. If we try to do things differently, it can feel a little scary sometimes. And then you might experience fear, like, well, what if I need this again if I get rid of it? You haven't had enough practice as a child or seen it modeled for you. So it becomes this great big unknown. And so you end up keeping everything because that's what you've learned. And you may not even fully understand why your parents kept everything. It's sort of just this vague, like, well, just in case. But just in case for what? And so without that practice of letting go, you end up holding on to a lot of stuff, a lot of the guilt. If you do let things go, you feel bad about it. You might feel like you're being ungrateful or being wasteful when you get rid of things, or just a sense that, it's a bad thing to get rid of stuff. Or if on the other end of the spectrum, if you have parents who just like threw things away, they didn't have a lot of attachments. Maybe they feel like, well, they paid for it, so they can do whatever they want with the stuff, including your things. And so sometimes things in the home, like this happened to me with my grandfather. We were living together, and if I didn't play with a toy and I'd leave it to like go to the bathroom or something, and I'd come back and it would be gone, and there would be no conversations about it, and which made me as a 6-year-old very confused, but too afraid to ask. Like, yeah. And I think they felt like I was being irresponsible, or he felt that way. I really don't know. I still don't know. But yeah, my family kept a lot of things, but my stuff they were able to make those decisions for me. So I feel like, I've seen this with my clients that have come home after school and all of their stuff was gone because they didn't clean up, and they were threatened by the parents, like, if you don't clean up, I'll throw your things away. So what ends up happening is they, as a grown-up, ends up holding on to a lot of things. And so, it becomes very scary to let go. And our children are always watching us, the way how we shop for things. Like, I only shop for things on sale because my parents only shop for things on sale. They kept everything. And for many, many years, I also kept everything. And so being aware that our children are watching and picking up on these patterns, because we know our patterns, how we picked it up from our parents or grandparents, we're just kind of stuck in this cycle that's like pretty deeply rooted. And then when you're in a relationship and your partner maybe grew up differently from you, now you have this dynamic in your home that just a lot of conflicts can happen because you're carrying sort of like generations of old habits and old ways of thinking about your belongings or how to organize and how to let go. And so a lot of the tension in the home doesn't just happen with the one item that you're trying to get rid of. There's actually a whole history that if you don't recognize it, you don't even realize like how it's impacting you.
That was something I was just going to say as you were talking about how your past can influence your way of throwing things out or not. Immediately, my mind went to my husband and how different the two of us are in how we have the experience of that growing up and how we're on the different ends of not quite extreme, but we're definitely on the opposite ends. And we do have a lot of conflict because of it. And he really struggles to get rid of things. And I'm kind of the other end of things. And it's just really difficult for us to manage those two situations, to be honest. We just have different philosophies about it. So it definitely can cause, I can see how it can be really difficult.
Yeah. I see that a lot with my clients. And I sometimes wonder, I don't know if someone's done a study about this, if it's a gender issue, because I know that as a woman and mom, like we're just more sensitive to our emotions. And I think boys and men like raised in a different generation were not taught to be sensitive to their own feelings. A lot of times it's more suppressed. And so we have a lot of attachment to our belongings. Like we have relationships with our things. And so if you're not in touch with your own emotions, it makes it more difficult to let things go. It's easier to kind of brush it aside.
Yeah. And I don't think they're as, at least what I've seen, sensitive to like environmental clutter either. I think a lot of times maybe gender based, it can be a little bit like different. Well, I guess it depends on the person. So I don't know if that's gender based, but I do think just paying attention to how things affect you might be less on the male gender side. So that can definitely cause, issues too, I think.
Yeah, my husband and I are opposite. He's very sensitive to his environment more than I am. So the clutter gets to him a lot faster and I can handle it. But once I hit my point, I'm probably exploding a little bit more. But with the gender difference there, and I also know with the moms and the women that I work with, they are very influenced by how their mothers kept the house, the clutter, and the cleaning patterns that they have. And they unknowingly pick up the same things. They unknowingly will have the house spotless or clean all the time if that's what their, mothers did. And vice versa. If mom didn't care, then they're probably a little bit more lax. But the moms that I talk to, they really put a lot of personal either pride in the house or just think that they need to keep up those expectations. And then that can cause a lot of stress. They're not living up to their motherly or their wifely, duties within the house because of what they saw their moms do. How can they, once we bring it up and they're able to kind of realize that, what is the first thing? How do they kind of start to break those cycles? Because the moms I work with, they don't want to pass it on to their kids. How do they break that cycle? And how do you work with them to start breaking those cycles?
So the first thing is to pause and kind of notice that cycle without judgment, because we're not going to get anywhere if we just start blaming our parents for the way we are. And so I think if the parents had the skills or the right kind of tools, they would have taught you, or you would have experienced it or learned by watching. But I kind of feel like the organizing methods and the parenting approach that the three of us are advocating, in some ways, like it's fairly new. And I think that, we have more resources to learn, like there's a different way to do things. There's a different way I can think about this stuff. So I think just by noticing that this is kind of where we are, meet yourself where you are, then we can go from there to start to make changes and become, like we were saying before, like curious, like, well, what if I did something a little bit differently? Like it will lead me to a different outcome.
Yeah, I feel like with that, though, there can be guilt, like we were talking about, like the same idea when you get rid of things. Maybe you have guilt. Or sometimes for me, it's like when I don't do the same things that my parents did in my house, I start to feel like off almost, like antsy. It's like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Like I need to keep going, or I can't sit down. I can't rest. Like I can't do what I want to do. It's almost like my brain is taking me there without me wanting it to happen. And I do think that's the unconscious idea where the expectation is set by how it was when you were growing up. And then you just like to move away from that expectation. It almost feels off, like almost like you're dysregulated in a weird way, is what it feels like for me. And then when I don't follow those things that my brain's telling me to do, it's a lot of guilt, a lot of I'm not doing enough, feeling like I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more. And then it just becomes that much more difficult to really say to myself, no, I'm choosing to rest because this is more important to me. I don't want to do the same things as, my parents did. And it becomes really hard to stick with it, I think.
And what jumps out at me, the way I work with mom, Adrian, even is like all those shoulds and those expectations, right? Which bring up all that guilt. And I like that Ann and how we do things is becoming more of the team effort. It takes it off of just the moms, right? So hopefully we can lessen some of that guilt. And so I'm wondering, how do families shift from feeling like the parents or mom have to do it to getting it to be more of a team effort? Is there kind of a different way that you're kind of working with it and helping them make that shift to that team?
Yes. So you probably have heard parents say, like, pick your battles. But oftentimes when parents decide to avoid the battle, it's to do it themselves because we think it's easier and faster than dealing with the meltdown. But from the Dooley Method perspective, if your child feels like they've lost a battle, it's not really a win for the parents. And the same is true if you feel like you lost that battle and you're like, yeah, I'll do it by myself. Then that's not an ideal situation either. We don't want anybody to feel like they're losing. It should not be a battle when it comes to parenting, or like normalize that thought as your only option is to choose one or the other. So ideally, I want the family to have a win-win solution. And you can do that only when you work as a team. Like both people have to show up and give a little bit, or figure it out together. So we can start by changing the language that we use. I feel like so often like we just have this like internal language, like you're saying, like, oh, I feel so guilty. I feel like I'm not good enough. And so we want to like replace some of the language that we use when we are talking about cleaning up or organizing the home. So instead of saying like, go clean your room, which like on its own just sounds like a punishment. Right? And so instead, like if you just walk in there like, hey, it's time to clean up your room. Do you feel confident doing this by yourself or do you need some help? So you notice like that's a very casual thing. There's no like nobody's in trouble. And also when you are finding out if they feel confident enough to do it by themselves, or two, they don't. And either they need help or they would rather, let's just do it together. But either way, you're offering two choices that leads to the same outcome. The room gets cleaned. So when they do it by themselves, you can say, oh, wow, your room looks great. You're really responsible. You said you could do it by yourself, and I can see that. You're super capable. Or if you end up helping, then you can say, hey, that's awesome. Like, we're such a great team together. And so the language becomes like, oh, I love that. Like in our family, we help each other. So when you are not just bossing them around, you're giving them a choice. So you're not activating their fight or flight because they feel like I have some support. Or mom is curious about how do I want to put away the blocks first or the books? Like there's a dialogue. It's not just, I have to do this all by myself and I'm scared and confused and I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to upset my mom and I don't want my device time to get taken away. And so when you start to think of your family as a team, and just depending on your children's age and what they're capable of doing or their motor skills, you can start with the parents doing 80% and your child doing 20%. Maybe they pick one category of toys to put away and you take on more. Because before that, it's the parent taking on 100% and being upset about it. and the child maybe doesn't feel good either, right? So 80-20, and then with repetition, just being consistent, using this language about we're a team, and you're like lowering the temperature of it's a shift from how it used to be a very tense situation where it feels like a battle to like, oh, hey, this feels different. Like your children will notice. My mom is not coming in here angry. My dad's not coming in here upset with me. And not only that, they want to help me. And so they start to feel more comfortable. Their connection with cleaning up changes. That this isn't something to avoid because they actually want me to succeed. And so it could shift to you doing 60%, they do 40% and 50-50. And eventually they have the skills. They know it doesn't take as long. And not only that, you're doing the work together and that can be your connection time. Because you can just like talk about their friends or making conversation, or you want to put the music on, and anything to make cleaning up into an opportunity for connection. And then over time, your children will have more skills. They feel more confident doing it. And then when they get to a point where maybe they say, no, I got this. I can do it by myself. And so you know, little by little, you're removing yourself from the equation. Like I still fold socks for my kids. Like they've been doing their laundry for a few years now, but I will always offer to fold their socks because that gives me a chance to sit with them and, you know, chat about whatever's going on in their day. And it's a lot less intimidating than, hey, let's sit down and, you know, have a conversation.
My husband is really good at this. He had my son help him with the dishes, who's 8. So he's like on the younger side, and doing the dishes by himself is not possible right now. He's too young. So he goes, hey, Macklin, do you want to play in the water with me? And then he just like put him up on the stool and he just started playing in the water. And then he was like, here, now scrub this one and I'll take it. And then he just kind of rolled it into making it actually doing the dishes. And I could tell at the end of it, my son felt really confident in himself. He felt really good about just, hey, I just did that. I've never done that before. It takes a little bit to get them moving into it, but like making it sort of connecting and more fun and just not having the expectation that they're going to get it all done by themselves or do it perfectly is so, so important. I think that that's a big part of it. I think a lot of the clients I work with are like, they do that big piece. Go do this entire thing by yourself. And it's just not realistic, right? We have to have really realistic expectations. And so I think that's important to remember that the more we can support them and do it with them, the more confident they feel to do it on their own. And I've seen my 12 and 8-year-old like literally just do it on their own all of a sudden, like randomly. They'll just start doing something that we've helped them with. And it's like really nice and sad. And then they feel really good. So it works out to be able to do it that way, I think. And I think a lot of the parents I work with are like, well, I'm enabling them and I'm, you know, they're never going to learn and they're never going to do it on their own. And it's kind of the opposite, actually, because you were saying it can be something they would want to avoid if you make it a fight or a battle or, you know, punishment, kind of feeling like a punishment. Like, I really like all that, the method that, you know, use. I think it works really well.
Just to shift a little bit, I'm just wondering, because for me at least, I always can kind of gauge my stress level depending on how much clutter and things I have around. Because the less stressed I am, the less stuff is around. But the more stressed I am, the more stuff I have around, and I'm feeling burnt out. So I'm not putting away my clothes, and the doom piles get even bigger. So I'm wondering if there's a difference between clutter being a symptom, such as my stress, or it actually being the cause of more stress.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
or is there not a difference?
well, this is kind of like the chicken or the egg equation, right? Which came first? So I look at it from like different phases. Before you had kids, you and your partner maybe have like the two of you you have different relationships with clutter from your partner. And so you have different habits in how you clean up. You each have different tolerance for how messy the house can get. And so even before kids, you experience stress in the relationship that had nothing to do with like toys and things like that. And so a lot of times in relationships, we don't want to make waves, you know, oh, it's just some laundry on the floor. It's just a little this and that. So each partner maybe start to let a few things go, but then a lot of times one partner end up taking on more responsibility to not make waves. So the clutter is causing stress, but one person is maybe absorbing it more. But then after the baby arrives, then suddenly you're dealing with like a lot more stuff to put away, a lot more things to organize. And so if you've never had a system before in how you organize, it's even harder now. And you add the stress from taking care of the baby with lack of sleep and things just, piling up in your home and people giving you, hand-me-downs. And so we end up buying more like bins and containers, and you're trying to solve the problem by buying more things to try to organize. So sometimes we end up dealing with the stress through retail therapy. We're looking for the answer by going to the container store or something. And that actually ends up creating more clutter. So when you have too much stuff and you have not enough storage, or maybe you don't have enough skills or motivation, you just end up being in this cycle where the stress is creating clutter and then the clutter makes stress worse.
That makes a lot of sense. It's always one of those things for me where I'm like, I want to go to the store and just make it go away. Just give me something that will solve my problem. And it never works that way. You just end up having more things and not really going through it or throwing anything out, and you're just storing it. And then you're like, no, I have to deal with that later. This is not helpful.
We've had many date nights at the Container Store trying to deal with our clutter. Yes, we do like the Container Store.
It kind of feels good to be in there sometimes. It's so
It
neat and
does.
clean and organized. It makes your whole nervous system just relaxes.
Yes, but I could definitely see how now we have the bins of the stuff just in a different space. And then we're getting stressed because we walk through the garage and it's like we still have all this stuff and it's not going anywhere. So I can see how that cycle.
I know that when we talked before, Anne, we talked about how you have this acronym that you use to support families with that helps them remember how to work together and reduce all that stress that the clutter creates or the cleaning creates. So can we talk about that acronym? I think it was really helpful for me to hear that from you too.
Yes. So the acronym SHINE, SHINE, stands for seen, heard, independent, nurtured, and engaged. And it's how parents can help their children develop internal motivation. So when a child feels seen, let's say they're putting something away or cleaning up, and that's something you want them to continue to do, and you say, "Oh, I see you're taking such good care of your toys. You're putting them back on the shelf." They feel seen. They know that you've noticed something that they're doing. So that's going to encourage them, like, I will continue to do this. Heard. So when we give children two options to choose from, do you want to put the toys away first, or you want to put the books away first? And they tell you like, oh, I want to do the books. So you tell them, hey, that sounds like a great plan. You heard their opinion and we're showing that we respect their choice. It's not like we came in and said like, do this, this, and that in exactly the way I want you to do it. They feel respected and valued and trusted for their opinion. And when they feel like we are allowing them to take the lead, to give them more independence, once they feel that independence, like, oh, let's say they organize their books by size, and then you notice that, wow, like you really took the lead on this. Like you decided this is how you want to organize things. That sense of leadership and independence will encourage them to do more because they start to trust themselves. They feel capable. But sometimes they might get frustrated. They're trying to put something away. Maybe the storage space is too small or the opening is too small, and they get frustrated. So that's where N for nurture comes in, because you can kind of hold space for them to be frustrated. And then we turn to being curious. Like, oh, I wonder if a different shelf would fit better. Maybe this item would fit better if we put it somewhere else. So you're coming in to help them through that frustration so it can be felt. And then they feel safe again to try again. And then the last letter, E for engaged, that's when you want to start to level up, like help your children level up and increase difficulty in a task that they've been doing. Let's say they have been folding socks for a few weeks now and they've gotten really good at it. And you feel like they could probably take on like folding a t-shirt. So you can say like, hey, you're getting so fast at folding the socks. Are you ready to fold t-shirts? I think you are. Kind of sort of give them a little that you believe in them. And so when you're showing that interest and then you're also creating like a safe space to support them to learn that new skill, then they're more likely to also try something new or try something a little bit more difficult. So, when you kind of use shine, you know, seen, heard, independent, nurtured, and engaged, it's all going to help your children develop their internal motivation.
Yeah, I hear that that's very kind and soft and generous towards the child. I'm really hearing that nurturing piece. I didn't want to use that word because it's already in your acronym, but that's what I'm hearing, right? You're nurturing the relationship. You're nurturing the child's confidence to be able to do the task and do it together. I really like how you have all of those pieces, and I can really kind of imagine, even with my own daughter, how I can do more of those to really help facilitate, because she's really resistant right now. So being able to use that acronym with her, because she does and wants to be very independent and very seen and heard. So I really look forward to using that. Is there another example of maybe a specific family that you can think of where you were able to use Shine and they were struggling, but after working with them, they were able to be more of a team? Do you have an example?
Yes. So I've worked with a family where both parents were working outside of the home, and the mom would get so angry and she comes home, there's toys everywhere, and the kids are tired and hungry and overstimulated by the visual clutter of all the mess. So the first thing I did with the family was to focus on the parents' bedroom so that when they come home, there's a place where it doesn't require more of them. They can decompress, and a space where it's a boundary where the parents have set that they can protect their peace. And this room will allow them to just have a moment to recharge so that they have more capacity to deal with the chaos outside. By working together to prioritize the parents' room, that process also taught the parents some organizing skills and parenting skills so that when they see the mess, they're seeing it through a new lens, because now they know, like, well, I have the skills to clean this up, or I know the language on how to talk to my children. So there's less urgency to have to immediately like make this go away. And the cleaning up becomes doing the organizing with their children instead of for them. And so what happens after the parents have that one space, now when they come home, they can kind of take care of their own needs first. So they're approaching from a more regulated state. And then they can go to the children. Let's say it's in their playroom and there's toys everywhere. They can connect with the children first and just say, hey, so what was the thing that you play with today that you enjoy the most? Like, show me what it is. So kids will know that they're interested in me and what I've been doing, right? So now once they have that connection, the mood in the room is different. There's not a lot of anxiety or anger or urgency, and everyone's nervous system is regulated. So then a conversation might sound like, hey, so dinner starts in 20 minutes. Let's work together to put away the toys before we eat. I can help. And so sometimes this is more for little kids that you can make it fun and say, like, should we put toys away like fast like a cheetah, or do it slow like a sloth? Or maybe have the kids set the timer. Like, I always have the children set the timer because I want them to be aware of, time passing. Maybe they can use the timer on the phone and pick like a funny alarm sound or something. And then when my kids were younger, I used to hold the basket to put the toys away. I would hold it and move it around the room so they can chase me, and they just start running around and put toys away. And so when that becomes a fun connection time and it gets done, then you can transition to like, okay, well, I'm going to go make dinner. Do you guys want to set the table? Right? You're continuing more teamwork together to move on to the next activity. Maybe you just have them like be the DJ and put some music on, or set the tables. I used to just have paper that they could draw on to make those the placemats. And so every step of the way, there is participation, there's connection, and then again, you follow up with the language, like, wow, you guys are such amazing helpers. I'm so lucky to be your mom. So like it just creates this really nice mood in your home while you're getting things done. And so there's really no need to turn to yelling or threatening or bribing. Instead, just the connection is helping your children to collaborate more. And that happens more and more over time when you're doing it consistently.
I've noticed you used a lot of, in positive parenting, we call it appreciation encouragement, so that you're not just praising them, but you're saying specific reasons why you think they did a good job, or even just saying thank you, like praising the effort and then saying thank you, having the appreciation. Those are my two favorite ways to encourage kids to have internal motivation. You're such a great helper. Thank you so much for doing X, Y, or Z. You really do make things easier on me. I really appreciate it, that kind of stuff. So using those kinds of words seems to be part of your system too. And I did see that you wanted to help kids develop intrinsic motivation as a big part of wanting to keep cleaning and wanting to keep helping. And I think that's a good way to do it. And then what happens is that becomes their inner voice. It's like, oh, I'm good at this. I can help. I'm supportive. Like my mom's very appreciative of me. And then that can kind of help with even wanting to clean even more or wanting to help clean in the future. So I really do. I just wanted to point that out. That I thought that was a really great way to encourage the kids to do more. And so I think our last question, because we're running out of time, even though this has been such a great conversation, I know there's so much more. But if a parent right now is listening and just doesn't know where to start, or I can't really think of even what to do, my first step, can you give them an idea as to how to move forward? One tiny step maybe that they could do?
Yes. So a lot of times when it comes to organizing, the tip is, just pick one drawer or one spot to declutter, and like that can definitely help. But I think the tip that I want to leave is not about decluttering action, but more of a mindset shift. It's like a little guided meditation. So do you guys want to do it with me? Okay. So you can close your eyes and just breathe. And I want you to picture this, like from a bird's eye view inside of your home, and you're seeing you and your family spending time together. You're smiling and you're having a good time. And then just imagine your home, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, they're all working together to keep your family and everything your family owns safe. And for as long as you lived in this home, it has been holding all of these things that you brought inside without judgment. The messy closet, the piles, all the stuff. That your home will continue to hold these things for you. And it does not keep score. It is not disappointed in you. And it does not measure your worth by the state of anything inside it. And it's not asking for perfection, just your presence. And as you breathe, just feel gratitude for your home and the continued patience as you learn alongside your family new skills to declutter and to organize and take care of what's inside it. And you can just hold on to that thought and feel more at ease that your home is not rushing you to get it all done at once. And just for a moment, take a cleansing breath and exhale, and you can just make one calm choice at a time, one moment at a time, and you can open your eyes.
Great.
That was so gentle.
I
That
love
was
that.
so lovely.
I feel like that urgency piece is really hard for me. I think for a lot of moms, it's like, there's X, Y, or Z to get done and you want to get it all done. And I think that it makes more sense to just not make it urgent and make it more peaceful and make it just part of your existence in the house. I love that. So that was very calming for me. Thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
You're
being with us.
welcome.
And so how can people get in touch with you if they want to contact you further?
Yeah, so they can visit me or get more information from my website. It's simplejoywithann.com.
Great.
Or or they can find me on Instagram with the same handle.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes, but I just wanted to make sure people knew. So really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on. It was a really good conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.